Welcome to RetireCoast, where we discuss all things retirement, life on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and your financial welfare. Bill Anderson, your host, is a serial entrepreneur, having created many successful businesses and holds a real estate broker's license, speaks about personal experiences with each topic. Listen, learn, and improve the quality of your life.
Welcome back to RetireCoast Podcast. I'm going to talk today about a topic that interests me greatly and should interest you as well. I just finished a podcast talking about insurance rates in the United States, both automotive and household or homeowners insurance. And one of the key takeaways from that discussion was the fact that prices are going up very fast, and with no sign of them retreating anytime soon. One of the major reasons for that is the shortage of labor, the shortage of people that do technical things. I'm not talking about college graduates that sit behind a desk now. I'm not talking about the bureaucrats someplace. I'm not talking about managers. I am talking about individuals who actually get their hands dirty, or maybe they wear gloves today, something different than when I was much younger. And those individuals that are in a whole big variety of different industries, everything from electricians to plumbers to people that now, the newest thing is to install photovoltaic panels on homes. Some people call them solar panels. That is an entire industry now all over the country. And we've got wind turbine technicians, something new. Not newer recently, but certainly something that hasn't been around for too many decades. And then we have boiler makers, we have aircraft mechanics, we have even commercial pilots, for example, do not need to have a college degree to learn their skill. So let me talk about this whole idea that we are in a severe shortage situation with these jobs. You've heard the term before, Americans won't do this work, usually referring to people that are picking fruits and vegetables. And there's some truth to that, although let me just step back a little bit. I was hoping to move forward, but I can now stop. I've talked about automotive technicians. Now, I used to own a business supplying automotive electrical products. As a matter of fact, my little business with my hands and a couple of others, we remanufactured alternators and starters in that business, which means we tore them down and we cleaned them and we put new parts in them all by hand, every single one of them, and tested them and make sure that they work. And then we used to sell those to auto shops and car dealerships, and they would repair vehicles with those. So I have been there when I'm talking about this. I owned that business. I started that business. And not only did we make them, but we actually sold them directly too. And I enjoyed that. I really did. I had the satisfaction of making sure that my products did not fail. As a matter of fact, let me just take a victory lap here. When I rebuilt an alternator or a starter, my products never failed. And I mean never failed. I was doing this for several years. And during that time, when I sold a product, I never received a call that it failed. And yet, most of my business was based on products that were produced by different entities, a lot of them coming from China and Japan at the time, that failed. They were new. Brand new products that failed, or rebuilt products where they had big factories full of people. Most of them were illegal labor, and they put them all together and they weren't paying attention. They may test some of them, and a lot of them failed. Mine never failed. That's because when I did the work, I made sure that they were cleaned properly, that the right parts were put in there, that it was tested properly, and then we delivered it and we stood behind it. If there had been any failures, we would have received a phone call right away and would have changed it out. But fortunately, in all that time, I didn't need to do that. And that's the kind of job that's going away. People don't want to do that anymore. Now, I went to college, so I'm not putting going to college down at all. It's good for some. It's not good for all. Let me give you an example in my own family. There were 5 of us in my family, and one brother who stood out among all the others having skills. That's what I call them, skills. When he was in high school, and at the time we were in high school, they had all of the what they called manual skills, which were auto shop and carpentry and metal shop and all those things. And our brother just did an exceptional job, particularly with carpentry work. He used to build cabinets and things, and I thought, wow, this is great. What a skill. I wish I could do that. And I like to do those kinds of things. And no matter what I ever did in those skills, he just was outstanding. Well, it ended up being a job for him because, as he moved through life and he learned all kinds of other skills, how to do plumbing and things, he ended up being a team manager for one of the bigger counties in California, and he had a lot of people working for him, and he did all of that without going to college. Now, he wouldn't have done well in college. It would have been a waste of time. It would have been a waste of money, but he found his track through life. And my parents did not push any of us to go to college. We talked about it. If we wanted to go, we could go. We could do all kinds of things. My parents never went to college, and they did very well. They had great jobs. They had pensions afterwards, so they didn't push us. Unfortunately, a lot of parents today are pushing their children to college. It's a no-brainer. When they're first born, they're thinking about what college they're going to go to. And that's not working out well for us. Is the reason that, one of the reasons anyway, that a lot of people out there are not going to learn all of these different skills that I just mentioned is because they're pushed early into this belief that they need to go to college and they don't think of anything else. So we have at least one generation, perhaps 2 generations already out there that think that working with your hands is something that is beneath them or dirty, as I've heard say. You may or may not have heard of a person named Mike Rowe. He's on TV periodically. He was in a show about working with your hands and getting dirty, going into sewers and that kind of thing. And he is a big promoter of the manual skills. I listened to him the other day, and he said, much like I'm saying, that there is a problem in our society where these jobs are denigrated. They are meant to seem to young people to be something that they shouldn't aspire to at all. Now, most parents won't even discuss the possibility that someone could become an air conditioning technician at all, even though we call these people to come out to our houses, and they are so critical. Well, let's think about this for a little bit. We keep hearing about all of this AI that's going on, artificial intelligence. And believe me, there's a lot of it out there. I seek it occasionally for some of the research that I need for some of my podcasts and my blog articles. And I'm telling you, it's going to replace a lot of skills out there. I was talking to an attorney the other day, and the attorneys have to do research on cases, and that research used to be going through books on cases, and then it was online, and now it's using the AI to write everything for them. It literally is going to put out of business some of the clerical people that work for attorneys because it's not necessary anymore. And you can go down the list of people who are doing jobs that don't require any type of manual labor skill and wonder when they're going to be out of work. Obviously, we have doctors and other people like that do a lot of work for us, but even those individuals may have trouble staying in those skills because equipment down the road will be doing some of the operations for people. But one of the things that we almost absolutely know intuitively is that manual labor jobs are going to be with us forever. A plant operator, a petroleum pump operator, commercial drivers. Someone's got to drive the vehicles. I know you heard about driverless vehicles. Now maybe that'll go away and it'll decades down the road. But someone has to come to your house and fix your plumbing. Someone has to come to your house and do electrical work. We need to put up buildings. We need to put up housing. Someone's got to do that. Someone has to physically move that material over there and make sure that it's all put together properly. Now, these aren't factory kind of jobs I'm talking about. These are outside jobs. Wind turbine technicians. Who's going to climb up to the top of a wind tower? A robot? Possibly. Way, way, way down the road. But before any of these jobs that I mentioned are going to be automated, many, many other jobs in the economy will not be. They'll be gone. So it's really important that if you're a parent or a grandparent, you consider talking to your children and grandchildren about the opportunities available out there, the immediate jobs that they can get. They don't have to wait. And the other thing is, it doesn't take 4 years or 5 years or 6 years of education to get these jobs. And the return on investment is simply outstanding. Let me just tell you what I found. I did an analysis on the return on investment for 20 skills areas, and then someone that went to college and received a bachelor's degree. And what I wanted to know was, what kind of income return can I get for the money it cost me in education to be able to get that job? So on commercial pilots, which is one of the more pricey education, now that goes from $70,000 to $120,000. This is average numbers, with a salary of $121,000 roughly, and that was a 1% to a 1.73% ROI, which is one of the lower ROIs. Nevertheless, it's a big salary, but still, you have to put a lot of money in the education. Whereas a bachelor's degree ROI would have been 0.24, not even a percent. Transportation managers, not one of my favorite jobs for a manual labor skill, but many of these transportation managers had to start driving trucks or doing something in the yard first, so it all works out. That was a cost of between $0 and $1,500. So with an annual salary of nearly $100,000, that was a 6% to a 63% increase in ROI. Let me go down to a couple of others that are some of my favorites now. Petroleum pump operators. I was in the oil business for a long time, and that is a zero because they train these people on the job. And so there was a zero education cost, and if there's any education, they get it for free. The annual salary is about $74,000. And, of course, it's infinite ROI because it didn't cost you anything. Whereas the bachelor's degree cost on this one, if they went to get a 4-year degree to do this job, which is not necessary, but if they did, it'd be 0.1, okay? Commercial drivers, there's many of these, and that's a pretty popular job around the country. So they're making about $60,000 a year, with a cost of between $3,000 and $7,000 to go to driving school. So that's a 5.6 to a 19% return on investment. Aircraft mechanics are in dire need. They can't get them fast enough, and the military is hemorrhaging them. They can't get them fast enough either. But there's a $10,000 to $30,000 schooling cost for that. That's about a $65,000. So that's a 2.2 to 6.6%. And again, with the bachelor's degree, it's less than a percent. Electricians, between $1,000 and $15,000 to learn the skill. With a $60,000 job, that can be returned as high as 60%. Plumbers, very similar, $0 to $15,000 to go to school to learn to be a plumber, with about a $60,000 average income. Now, let me just explain that these incomes I'm giving you are nationwide. Some areas pay a lot more, but things tend to be relative. If they pay a lot more, the cost to live in the area is a lot more too. So, for example, in Southern California, a plumber could make over $100,000, but it costs more to live there than it does, for example, to live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So that one's plumbers is about anywhere from 3 to 60% return on investment. HVAC technicians, one of my favorite jobs because I work with one or two all the time with different properties fixing the air conditioning systems. And it costs between $1,200 and $15,000 to learn to become an HVAC technician. And actually, that is a pretty good number because my daughter's son, or my daughter's grandson, has gone to that school, and it costs about $15,000, and he can make in California can make about $80,000. So that's about a 70% return on investment. Solar panel installers, that's popular in some areas with a lot of sun. It's between $1,000 and $7,000, and they can make up to a 47% return. And automotive technicians, I mentioned that's a $5,000 to $20,000 education cost, and they can earn anywhere from $46,000. That's the average, but they can earn well over $100,000 in many areas around the country, and that's a pretty good return on investment also. So you can see that compared to just going to college, starting out, these are pretty good deals. Let me explain something else. I created an analysis to take a look at a 5-year period of time from the first day that someone decides that they want to become, for example, a commercial driver, and going out 5 years from there. So considering that there's a 3-month education period for that, they wouldn't be earning anything in that 3 months. But it's possible with all these jobs I'm going to mention to you that there's an apprentice payment that's made, and I'm not going to include that. This would just be from the 3-month period of time on to finishing up to 5 years. Let's start with the bachelor's degree graduate. Just graduating with a bachelor's degree and with their typical income expected first year to be about $55,000 for the average job they would get with that degree. Well, after 5 years, obviously they were in school for the first 4 years, and we're showing that with zero income. So that $55,000 would only be in year 5, which means that in 5 years they would have earned $55,000. And incidentally, they would have paid anywhere from $120,000 to $160,000 for that education. So I'm not going to go through the entire list with you, but I'm going to go through a few. So let's go to elevator installers and repairers. That's something nobody really knows about, right? But it's a job. Everywhere there's an elevator, someone's got to put it in and they've got to repair it. So it's a big job, a lot of work out there. And so there's a 4-year apprentice situation where they're not going to really earn much during that 4 years. But the year 4, they're going to earn $84,999 and $87,500 the year 5. So they've earned $172,000 in the only 2 years, because it takes them several years to learn. They're still way ahead of the $55,000 that the person with a bachelor's degree has. Let's talk about detectives and investigators. And a lot of cities and counties hire these individuals without a degree. Now, this isn't really working with your hands, so to speak, but it's not really one of those paper jobs that requires you to sit back behind the desk all the time. There are people out there, and they earn pretty good money. It takes them a year to learn to get their education, and then for 4 years, they're going to earn about $349,000 compared to $55,000 for the bachelor's degree. HVAC technicians, it takes them about a year to learn that, and so they're going to earn between $51,390 and $56,000 each of the final 4 years. So they're going to earn $214,998 in the 4 years that they're working, because it only took them 1 year for education, as opposed to a college-educated person took 4 years for education and they're making $55,000. Let's talk about sheet metal workers. There is an apprentice period of time here. several years where they're not going to earn full salary, but they will earn part of a salary, but we put zero down here. They're still going to have $108,000 compared to $55,000. And then we're going to talk about, say, a massage therapist, for example. Again, not one of those people that gets their hands dirty outside, but they still need their hands. It's not a paperwork job sitting behind a desk. And that job that's going to pay about $47,000 in the second year will continue to pay all 4 years out to the fifth year, and they're going to earn anywhere from $196,000 to $206,000 against that $55,000 that the person went to a bachelor's degree. An automotive technician is going to spend about 2 years learning their skill. They're going to get paid during that time, but we have zero in here. And then the 3 years, they're going to earn income. They're going to earn up to $159,000 in those 3 years, again, compared to $55,000 for a bachelor's degree. Well, I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to bother you. If you saw it in the chart form, which you will when you go to RetireCoast.com and see the article that this topic discusses, you can actually see all of these different jobs that we have in here, and you can see the return on investment. You can see the amount that they're going to get back. But you can clearly see that during that time, people are going to earn a bachelor's degree, that 4 years they're not employed anywhere. They're probably living at home with their parents, but they're not earning income. And people in the other skills are, almost all of them are earning income. For example, on the commercial drivers, they earn income the first year. Petroleum pump operators earn it the first year. Transportation managers earn it the first year. Most of them earn it the second year. Almost everybody earns it the third year. There's only a few exceptions in there. So those years are lost years, basically, for income. And that cost to go to school at $120,000 to $160,000 or much more, it takes years and years and years and years to recover, while others are out there making money. So I can imagine that it must be somewhat difficult for someone to graduate from high school, go off to college, and come back home during the summer or whatever, and see their friends that stayed and they're working as electricians or plumbers. They're making good money. They have really nice cars, and yet these individuals are being supported by their parents. I want to go a little bit further afield right now, and we're going to dive into what the basically the top 10 income earners in California. Now, the reason I'm doing California is because these income numbers I'm giving you are averages across the country. And it's clear that in some areas, as I mentioned earlier, the salaries are much higher in some places, high enough for the individuals that are working even early in their careers can have a really nice income and a nice life. So I'm going to go down a list of them here. The highest paid position without a college degree in California would be a commercial diver. And those average salaries are $161,000 a year. Now, they don't obviously earn that from day one because it takes time before you become a good scuba diver. If you were to take that skill and use it with petroleum companies and go and dive on the rigs, then you're talking way over $200,000 for jobs that don't really require a lot of time, in the sense that because the average time in the water has to be monitored, you can't spend that much time down at certain depths. They're off more than they work, which is not only a really high-paying job. I mean, obviously there's some danger involved, but it's a great job. And that's about the highest you can get in California without a degree. Frontline supervisors for police and detectives, which you get to after a long time of working your way up, can make $150,000+ a year. Air traffic controllers can make $141,000. Makeup artists and theatrical performance, well, California has a big demand for that, and that's $136,000. Frontline supervisors of firefighting and prevention workers, $124,000. And then here's mine. Real estate brokers in California can earn an average salary of $117,000 or $118,000, and some of them earn more than $1 million a year. elevator and escalator installers and repairers, that's next. I told you that before. No matter where you're at, that's a pretty good salary. Transportation, storage, and distribution managers make over 100,000, and dental hygienists 108,000. So these are all great skills. None of them require a college degree. You don't start out at those numbers, obviously, but you wouldn't start out if you had a degree at those numbers either. But there's opportunities to earn good money in all of these skills all across the United States. And there are many, many more. I mean, I just stopped with 10. You really can't get much more into this kind of thing when you're talking on a blog article, because it's hard to keep track of all these numbers, and until you actually see them, which again you can at RetireCoast.com. But my point with this whole discussion here is that the country is in dire need of people who do all of these jobs, and we don't honestly need any more people that have degrees. I can tell you that I owned a company years ago. Before I sold it, it was a pretty good sized corporation, and we had most of our employees, I would say probably 95%, did not have college degrees. And many of them that did have college degrees were working in jobs right alongside of someone that did not have a college degree, because with their degree, whatever that was, and I never asked, the jobs that we were doing were the best that they could get with their degree. Now, that's counterintuitive. The thinking on the part of parents and, of course, the students is that they're going to just do outstanding work, and they're going to make lots and lots of money over time because they have that degree, and that's just not the case today. Many, many people that have earned a college degree are working side by side with people who did not. Amazon, for example, employs a tremendous number of people with four-year degrees that are working right next to someone who has no degree at all, because there simply aren't enough jobs out there that will pay the higher amounts and demand for degrees, unless you get into some scientific jobs and medical jobs and some of those things. But for the vast majority of income workers in the United States, they're all in the same kind of category in terms of the income that they can earn. That college degree doesn't do what it used to do. But considering the cost of the degree today, when I went to school, it wasn't very expensive at all, and I paid for it, and I had the GI Bill to help pay for some of it, but I didn't end up with any debt. No one I knew had any debt out of college. It was all paid for. In fact, most of my friends, they paid for it themselves. Their parents weren't on the hook to pay either, which is particularly concerning today because there are grandparents that have signed for debt, and their grandchildren have left college and they're responsible for it and they can't retire. Or the parents in their 50s, because people are having children a little bit later, they're saddled with all kinds of school debt that their children just cannot earn enough money to pay for. And it appears that they're going to need assistance for years and years to come. I answer a lot of questions on a website called Quora, Quora, where I have had more than 1.5 million people read my answers to various questions that they ask. And one of them that keeps coming up is about the cost of going to college and student debt. And the questions they keep asking is, what can I do with the student debt? I have all this student debt. What can I do? Over and over and over. In every way you can think of asking the question. The platform doesn't like the same question over and over again. If someone asks it, they'll direct them to some other place where the question is very similar. But they're different enough that I've answered many of them, and I keep saying the same thing. You signed up for the debt. You're responsible for it. It's the law, not only the law, but it's the right thing to do. And a lot of these younger people are saying, but I can't pay it, so can it go away? Or how can it go away? They want it to go away. Well, parents, I'm telling you, don't allow your children to get caught up in this debt cycle of something they can't afford to pay. Because if you start looking at these numbers that I just explained to you, you'll find out that your children would be far better served going into another field that costs far less, if anything at all, to get into, and can give them immediate satisfaction of income, which means you don't need to keep supporting them into their 30s. You can, have them out there right away earning an income that will stay with them the rest of their lives. If they pick, there's so many of these fields that they can pick from that'll pay them a living wage, is what the term most people use, which means they can raise a family and enjoy the benefits of living in the United States. As opposed to this constant discussion of college debt when they're earning maybe $40,000 a year with their college degree. It just doesn't work out. It's not a good return on investment. So I think parents really are the ones that are more responsible to see that this happens. And then I'll mention that government has to take a role in this too. The U.S. government has made it so much easier for colleges and universities to keep raising their rates because they know that the money's going to be available. So as the government keeps offering more and more money to be borrowed by the students, the universities keep raising their rates because they know they can get it. So if the government decided that they're going to put some constraints on the students, on the student loans and what they can spend the money on, they can't just go out and, buy beer every weekend with this money. There's going to have to be some type of controls over it. And also there has to be some controls over the amount the government is willing to loan to the students, which therefore means that the universities would have no choice but to lower their rates or they wouldn't have students. So there's a lot of work that has to be done with both the government and with the parents, but the parents are the primary people responsible to keep their children from getting into debt. Now, if your child has the capacity to become a doctor that can spend $300,000 and earn several $1 million in their lifetime, well, hey, that's a different story. But if they just want to go out and get a bachelor's degree and they end up working in a nail salon, making $35,000 a year, and they've got $200,000 to pay off, that just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then for the government to have, over the last couple of years, pay off all of this debt is just incredible to me. I just almost can't believe it because they never solved the problem. That debt that they paid off is going to keep being re-incurred by new students, and they're going to be in the same position down the road because the government never took any steps to keep that debt from coming back up again with new students. So, sorry for getting on my high horse here about all of this, which might seem political to some of you, but I trust it's not. Actually, it's about survival, basically, and it's about having a good quality of life. So, in closing, I want to say that there's lots of information out there for you to be able to look at and point to your children, including our article on RetireCoast.com, along with many others. Also wanted to give a shout out to Mike. I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, Mike Rowe. He was host of the series Dirty Jobs, and he has a foundation that's called the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, MikeRowe Works Foundation. I'll put that in the show notes. You might want to go to his website because he has scholarships for students pursuing careers and trades, which is a great thing. It's terrific. I love listening to this guy because he's been there and he's done that. In other words, he's walked the walk. So go and listen to what he has to say and read, and have your children check things out. They should look at this as if they're going to make an investment in a business or in a stock. And if they're going to make that investment in there, they better look at what the return on that investment is going to be. Well, thank you again for coming to our podcast, and I hope you come back and listen to some others.